Welcome to Insolvency Bites 2021. All right, let's tackle straight away 1 year bankruptcies because everyone started talking about it again. What have you heard?
Well, it all raised its head, I think, towards the end of last year. There was a bit of a whisper around it when all the corporate changes were coming in. I know that the Attorney General's office has released a discussion paper for submissions. I think those submissions might have shut earlier this week or about now. But it's all about whether or not we go back to the 1 year bankruptcy that was raised. I think it was in 2016, 2017.
Was it that long ago?
Maybe it was
I don't know. 2020 is a blur, so it could have been.
I think it was about 3 years ago. So land that wherever you will. And we all wrote to the Senate inquiry and told them what we thought of it. And then it all turned on its head and lapsed with the election that happened.
Yeah.
So what I understand is the reason that it lapsed is because there was too much concern around fraudulent activity. And there wasn't enough safeguards to allow which allowed people to continue to do 1 year bankruptcies without any sort of benchmark as to when that stops. So you'll know with the corporate legislation that's come in now, you can only do that once every 7 years, either per company or per director. There was nothing like that for the 1 year bankruptcy that was raised previously. So they're looking at what they can do in terms of those safeguard measures. But in addition to that, I think they're looking at whether they want to bring back the early discharge, which is interesting because that didn't go away all that long ago because it simply didn't work, or whether or not there can be an election in terms of similar to the simplified liquidation regime. So the their 20 business day report might be able to say, nothing to see here, this can go through a 1 year bankruptcy. Or whether we extend it. So I think there's a lot to digest and see. I think they want to make some decisions pretty quickly. But I think there's still a lot of people with a lot of opinions that aren't really aligned at the moment.
No, and it's an interesting one. I had a lot of inquiry about this a couple of years ago, obviously now. And I think that one of the things that's important, especially for people outside the industry to understand, is that simply because it's a 1 year time frame that you are bankrupt, the powers of a trustee under the Bankruptcy Act, to recover property and voidable transactions and all the like is still subject to those same timeframes under the Bankruptcy Act. So it's not all magically going to disappear after 1 year.
No, and that extends to income. So they still want income to be assessed for 3 years.
For the 3 year period.
Yeah. So it sort of does take, I think a lot of the issues that they're wanting to sort of circumvent are people being able to get back into business, to be able to get credit again and to actually sort of start their lives off. And I think the main issues around that is actually with our credit reporting. So if you're bankrupt, that's on the NPW, the National Personal Insolvency Index forever. So, that can be searched publicly. But also, if you think about every sort of bank application, credit application, rental application, some job applications, they ask whether or not you've been subject to a bankruptcy or an insolvency event in the last 7 years.
Yes.
So irrespective of whether or not the period of bankruptcy is 1 year, you'll actually need to still report that.
You'll be checking that box.
Yeah, and the credit reporting agencies, continue to have it on their reporting for that period as well. So until I think that changes, changing the period of bankruptcy is probably not actually.
No, for me, it's always felt more like a something to combat the stigma and just to give that boost back psychologically, because a lot of the discussion back then was around not wanting to dampen the entrepreneurship of Australians and small business and the like. So that's all well and good on the surface, but as you say, some other changes would need to be made to make it really work in the way that a lot of people think it should. But as you say, opinion is very divided.